Hey there, welcome back to my kitchen. In today's video, I'm going to be showing you some of my family's all-time favorite sheet pan meals. If you don't know what a sheet pan meal is, it is a pan just like this that you could throw your veggies on, your proteins on, and your starches on, stick it in the oven to bake, and then when it comes out of the oven, that's pretty much all you do. You have an extremely easy dinner that you could throw on the table, and then also sheet pan meals are very low mess. So those are some of my favorite reasons why I love sheet pan meals, but let's go get to my kitchen and let's get cooking. These Parmesan crusted pork chops are going to kick us off for today. So we're going to make the Parmesan and panko mixture first into this bowl. I added a half a cup of grated Parmesan cheese and a half a cup of some regular panko breadcrumbs. Next, to season it up, you're just going to add a little bit of some pepper and about a teaspoon of some garlic powder. Just stir this mixture together. I have my sheet pan lined with some parchment paper, and then I cubed about 5 to 6 smaller sized golden potatoes, and then I added them to one side of my sheet pan. I drizzled it with about a tablespoon of some olive oil, and now I'm just coating the potatoes in the oil. For the pork chops, I'm using these 4 pork chops. It's about a pound of pork chops. They are thicker pork chops. You do want to make sure you use the thicker ones, just because the thinner pork chops just simply won't work for the recipe. They're going to dry out. So after I laid the pork chops on my cooking tray, I'm just drizzling a little bit of olive oil and brushing it on each of the pork chops. Now for the Parmesan and panko mixture, you're just going to pour it on top of these pork chops. You're going to save about a third a cup of this mixture for the end. After I lightly press the Parmesan mixture down onto the pork chops, I'm going to bake this on 350 degrees for about 25 minutes. While I have that in the oven baking, I'm going to prepare my pound of asparagus by chopping off about 2 inches of the end. That's just the woody part of the asparagus. After those 25 minutes of baking, I'm just going to push my pork chops and potatoes over to the end of the cooking tray, and I'm going to add my asparagus on there. Drizzle it with a tablespoon and a half of olive oil, mix it all together, and then you're going to add the remainder of the Parmesan and panko mixture. Just sprinkle it all over the potatoes and the asparagus. This bakes in the oven for an additional 20 to 25 minutes. Here's the finished product. This had so much great flavor. I love how I was able to throw everything on the sheet pan, bake it in the oven, and on this particularly busy night, this dinner was just super good. Now we're making these shrimp fajitas. You could substitute the shrimp for chicken if you don't care for shrimp. I'm just going to begin by slicing up my 2 bell peppers and 1 purple onion. I added the vegetables to this large bowl, and now I'm adding in my 1 pound of peeled shrimp along with a tablespoon and a half of some olive oil. You're also going to want to add in about 2 teaspoons of some garlic, a half of a lime. The lime is going to add a lot of great flavor. And then for this part, you can make your own taco seasoning, or you could just use the pre-made taco seasoning like me. I'm adding about 2.5 tablespoons of that in, and I'm going to mix everything together. I lined my sheet pan with some parchment paper for easy cleanup, and now I'm just adding my shrimp and veggies in there. I'm just going to mix everything together just so everything's well incorporated. This is going to bake in a preheated oven to 450 degrees for about 8 minutes. After those 8 minutes of baking, I'm actually going to take this out of the oven, and I'm going to mix everything together and bake this in the oven for an additional 2 to 3 minutes. Here's my plate of fajitas. I just topped mine with some cheese and sour cream. I meant to make some guacamole on the side, but I didn't realize I didn't have any avocados. And here's Brindley. She just took some of the sour cream. She was going a little wild on that night, but we loved these fajitas. This Greek chicken is probably one of my husband's all-time favorite dishes, so to get this one started, you're going to want to chop up your veggies. I just have about 5 smaller sized red potatoes, a half of a purple onion, green bell pepper, and about 8 ounces of cherry tomatoes. Now we're going to begin on the Greek marinade. This has so much great flavor. It really is wonderful. In this smaller sized bowl, I added 1/3 cup of some olive oil. Now I'm adding 3 tablespoons of red wine vinegar. That's what really kicks this up a notch in my opinion. And then I'm going to add about 2 teaspoons of some minced garlic, juice of a half of a lemon, a teaspoon of oregano, half a teaspoon of some basil and thyme, with 1 tablespoon of honey. After I'm through mixing the marinade together, I placed my veggies on my sheet pan. I'm going to pour a little over half of the marinade all over my veggies, and then I'm going to mix this together. I'm mixing it with my hands, or you could do it with a spoon. This bakes in a preheated oven to 400 degrees for 15 minutes. With the remainder of the marinade that we made up, I'm going to add my cubed pound of chicken breast to that, stir this all together, and then cover it with some cling wrap and place it in my fridge until I need to use it. So after those 15 minutes, I pulled the marinade out of the fridge with the chicken in it. I'm just going to stir it together on my sheet pan with the veggies, and then this is going to bake in the oven for an additional 15 to 17 minutes or until the chicken's cooked. Here's the finished product. This is my plate of food. I just sprinkled mine with some feta cheese. You could also place some olives on this because it is a Greek dish. This has extremely great flavor. I cannot even begin to explain how yummy it is. This one is a fun one. We're going to be making some disconstructed beef kebabs. We're going to begin on the marinade for this one first. I'm adding 1 cup of some low sodium soy sauce, or you could use coconut aminos to this bowl, with a half a cup of some olive oil, 2 tablespoons of some red wine vinegar, a half of a lemon, 2 cloves of garlic, 1 teaspoon of oregano, teaspoon of basil, and about half a teaspoon of pepper. You're just going to mix all of this together. To this large bowl, I'm going to add all of my cut up veggies. I'm using 4 ounces of mushrooms, 1 red bell pepper, and then about a half of a purple onion. For the meat that I'm using 1 pound of some beef sirloin that I cut into 1-inch pieces. I just added that to the bowl. With the marinade that I just made up, I'm going to pour it over the top of the steak and veggies, and then I'm going to stir it all around. You want it to coat all of the veggies and the steak, and then you're going to put some cling wrap over the top of this and place it in the fridge to marinate for about 1 hour to 5 hours. I marinated mine for about 3 hours. Now that that's through marinating, I placed it on my sheet pan lined with parchment paper, and I'm just spreading it out to the best of my ability. This is going to bake in a preheated oven to 400 degrees for about 25 to 30 minutes. Here is my plate of food. I sprinkled it with some sesame seeds. The steak was really nice and tender. The vegetables had a ton of great flavor. If you want to, you could pair this with some rice to go along the side. That would be super delicious, but this was a great meal. Now we're making some chicken drumsticks and vegetables. Of course, we're going to start on the sauce first. In this bowl, I added 2 tablespoons of melted butter, 1/4 cup of some mayonnaise, 2 tablespoons of some olive oil, about 3 cloves of some minced garlic, or you could add in about 2 to 3 teaspoons of that, a teaspoon of some dried parsley, or you could add in a tablespoon of fresh parsley, whatever your preference is, salt, pepper, paprika, and chili powder. You're going to stir this all together. In this large bowl right here, I have all of the veggies that I cut up, about 2 carrots that I diced into small pieces right here, 8 ounces of mushrooms, and 5 to 6 red potatoes that I just cubed like this. So now I'm just going to add the sauce that we made up to this and stir it all together. You want the veggies to be coated in that yummy sauce. On my pan, I'm going to add my 4 chicken drumsticks. Of course, you could use more chicken drumsticks or less, just depending on your preference. Right on top, I'm going to add our veggies in that yummy sauce, and I'm going to stir it all together. I'm going to season my chicken drumsticks with some salt, pepper, and paprika. This is going to bake in a preheated oven to 400 degrees for about 50 to 60 minutes. Once my chicken reached 165 degrees internally, I pulled it out of the oven, and here's my plate. This came out really super good. I do want to mention, if you don't care for any of the veggies that I used, you could always substitute them for veggies that you do care for. I did want to mention that, but this meal was super good. And that is a wrap of this video today. I really hope you enjoyed it and got some sheet pan meal inspiration. I hope you are all doing well, and if you are new to my channel, we would really love to have you here. So go ahead and subscribe down below the video, and I will see you in the next one. Bye for now.